Hey everyone. Today we're going to dive into a recent and pretty wide-ranging interview with David Icke. It covered a ton of ground, so our plan here is just to give you a straightforward breakdown of the main ideas he presented. We're talking about everything from the nature of reality to global control, and we're just going to stick to the facts of what was said.
Right. So, just to be super clear, our goal here is simply to summarize the key points from that conversation. We're not here to agree or disagree, we're just laying out what was discussed.
Okay, so where do we even begin? Well, according to the interview, everything, and I mean everything, seems to build from one core idea: the systematic manipulation of how we humans perceive the world. Exactly. The big claim is that there's this hidden group controlling humanity. And they don't do it with armies or anything like that. Instead, their main tool is shaping what we all believe is real and what we think is even possible. And how do they supposedly do that? Well, the interview points to four main pillars of control: our education system, the mainstream media, orthodox religion, and even orthodox science. The argument is that these institutions are used to feed us a very narrow version of reality, basically creating what he calls prisons for our minds. And that leads right into the next piece of the puzzle. Once you've got people locked into these different belief systems, the main strategy is classic divide and rule. You pit these different prisons against each other. That way, everyone's fighting amongst themselves instead of uniting. Okay, so from there, the whole idea of managed perception gets even bigger. It goes beyond just how our perception is controlled and starts to question the very fabric of reality itself. Like, is what we see even real? And the starting point for that idea is a pretty bold statement that humans are, for all intents and purposes, blind. And we're not talking metaphorically here. The argument is that this is a literal physical fact.
Yeah, check out this number 0.05%. That's the tiny, tiny slice of the electromagnetic spectrum that our eyes can actually see. So the argument goes, if we're only perceiving this minuscule fraction of what's out there, are we really seeing reality? Or are we in some kind of constructed simulation, like a matrix?
So, if our bodies and senses are so limited, then what are we? The interview draws a really sharp line here. There's the phantom self. That's your body, your name, your job, all those labels. But then there's your true self, which is described as this infinite, formless consciousness that's just, well, having a brief human experience. Okay, so that's a huge idea, and it obviously leads to the big question. If this is a simulation, who's running the show? And the interview lays out a very specific hierarchy of who or what is supposedly in charge. It's presented as a kind of pyramid of control. Right at the very top, there's this non-human, interdimensional force, something that exists just outside our range of perception in what's called the astral dimension. This force, the theory goes, directs a global cult or network of secret societies. They then manipulate our visible world, the political systems, the banks, you name it, which is what the rest of us experience. But why? What's the point of all this? The motivation that's given is interesting. It's claimed that this controlling force actually feeds on low-vibration human energy, things like fear, anger, anxiety, and division. So this brings us full circle back to divide and rule. Creating all that conflict and negativity isn't just about control. It's literally their food source. So we've gone from the very metaphysical to something a lot more tangible. The interview then shifts gears to technology, arguing that this whole ancient control plan is now kicking into its final stage, using a high-tech AI grid. And there's a pretty urgent timeline attached to this. Right now is described as the key phase for building out the AI and the digital ID systems. Then, the year 2026 is flagged as a major turning point, and 2030 is named as the target year to lock in a system of control that's called irreversible. So what does this grid actually look like? Well, a few key components are mentioned. We're talking about merging human consciousness with AI. Then you have things like central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, and programmable money to control every transaction. And this is all underpinned by total surveillance and a social credit system. Wow. So after laying out this incredibly detailed and frankly pretty dark picture of the world, the conversation wraps up by focusing on the proposed solution. What's the way out of all this? Right, so what's the answer? According to the interview, it's actually incredibly simple. It all boils down to this one idea. The power this system has is only the power we give it. The argument is that the whole structure, this entire pyramid of control, only works because people cooperate with it. And so the solution that's offered is mass noncompliance, just saying no. The idea is for people to peacefully refuse to go along with the systems that they feel are being used to control them. If enough people simply withdraw their consent, the argument is that the whole structure just falls apart. And that's pretty much the arc of the conversation. We've touched on the management of perception, the nature of reality itself, this alleged control grid, and finally, the proposed solution of noncompliance. So there you have it, a summary of the key ideas presented by David Icke in that interview. We hope this has been a helpful, neutral overview. Thanks for tuning in.